Well, I sat behind the Jackson family during the opening statements, and the biggest reaction that has come out of these proceedings so far has been when the prosecution played that audio tape of Michael Jackson during its opening statements. He sounded incoherent. You really couldn't understand a single word he was saying. In fact, here, take a listen.
When people leave the show, when people leave my show, I want to say, I've never seen nothing like this in my life. Go. I've never seen nothing like this. It's amazing. He's the greatest entertainer in the world.
Now, the prosecution contends Jackson was incoherent in that message because he was so highly doped up on drugs, and that Conrad Murray knew that and continued to give Michael Jackson more drugs to help put him to sleep. Now, the other big reaction in court from the Jackson family again came today when we learned just how much propofol Dr. Murray had purchased leading up to Michael Jackson's death. They were fidgeting, they were shaking their head, and even during that phone conversation you just heard, LaToya wiped her eye. One of the jurors had put his hand over his mouth while that was playing. One thing you didn't see that I can also tell you is right before this whole trial began, Dr. Murray was walking down the hallway with his mother, and a woman ran at him in the hallway. A deputy stepped in, literally almost picked her up and escorted her out. So these are the things in the trial itself that you can't see at home, and what we're seeing in the hallways as everyone goes in and out of the courtroom. I'll have a complete wrap-up for you coming up tonight on the KTLA News at 6 o'clock. Back to you in the studio.
It has been a day of high drama inside a downtown LA courtroom where Dr. Conrad Murray faces judge and jury.
Prosecutors say Murray is responsible for the death of music icon Michael Jackson. And in today's opening statements, they came out swinging. Brandi Hitt live at the downtown LA courthouse with our top story. Brandi?
Well, Mike and Cher, I sat right behind the Jackson family all day in court, and I got to tell you, day one was a very emotional day in court from my perspective. The biggest moment really came early on in the day when a call was placed between Michael Jackson and Dr. Murray. That phone call was played before the crowd, and Michael Jackson sounded so incoherent, it was really difficult to understand exactly what he was saying. According to the prosecution, he was extremely doped up at the time. We had one juror with his hand over his mouth while that was being played. The Jackson family visibly upset right in front of me, and LaToya Jackson even wiped her eye. Why don't you take a listen to the tape?
When people leave my show, I want to say, I've never seen nothing like this in my life.
He left this vulnerable man filled with Valium and midazolam and lorazepam and propofol with no medical monitoring equipment, no necessary resuscitative equipment. He left him there, abandoned him to fend for himself.
We believe the evidence will show you, the scientific evidence will show you that when Dr. Murray left the room, Michael Jackson self-administered a dose of propofol.
And there was more emotion in court. Conrad Murray also cried when his defense attorney, Ed Chernoff, mentioned how Murray had become friends with Michael Jackson. Then, after the opening statements, the first witness, Kenny Ortega, took the stand. As director and choreography of the This Is It tour, he says Michael Jackson was definitely different the week before he died.
Can you describe what you personally observed on that day, June 19th, 2009?
That my friend wasn't right, that he wasn't well. There was something going on that was deeply troubling me.
And of course, by my friend, you mean Michael?
Yes.
Michael Jackson?
Yes.
And the other emotional moment came towards the end of the day when the prosecution played Jackson's final rehearsal. Tissues were passed among the Jackson family. Katherine Jackson was consoled by another family member. And the 6 public seats that were taken for the trial for the day, those 6 people were sitting behind me, and most of them were crying. You could hear them crying in court. Now, tomorrow, Paul Gongaware is going to get back on the stand. He is the co-CEO of AEG Live, the promoter for Michael Jackson's This Is It concert tour. He took the stand today. He's going to return tomorrow. And what's interesting during today's testimony is he said Dr. Conrad Murray had asked for $5 million for a year to be Jackson's personal doctor during the time of the tour. Paul Gongaware said, no way, that's way too much money, because they had to get insurance for a tour like this. And Murray ended up settling for $150,000 a month. Reporting live downtown, Brandi Hitt, KTLA 5 News. Back to you in the studio, Mike Ensher.
Brandi, thank you. Who's responsible for the King of Pop's death? His private doctor on trial. Both sides begin to make their case.
He died so rapidly, so instantly. He didn't even have time to close his eyes.
And tonight, stunning evidence played in court.
If you believe my show.
It's day 1. The world is watching, and KTLA 5 News has team coverage. From opening arguments to the first witnesses, it was a packed day in court. Good evening, I'm Micah Ullman.
And I'm Cher Calvin. Conrad Murray is charged with involuntary manslaughter in the death of the King of Pop, and KTLA's Brandi Hitt was inside the downtown LA courthouse where emotions ran high.
I sat right behind the Jackson family in court today. The family and many others were upset with some of the evidence shown in the first day of the trial.
The biggest in the world. Michael Jackson to the hospital.
That incoherent voice is Michael Jackson, recorded on Conrad Murray's phone weeks before he died. It made the Jackson family uneasy in court, and one juror even had his hand over his mouth.
That is what Conrad Murray is seeing and observing.
The prosecution used the tape in its opening statement of the Conrad Murray manslaughter trial to show Murray was aware Jackson was having issues with drugs he was administering, like propofol, to help him sleep, but he kept on doing it.
Conrad Murray figuratively and literally abandoned Michael Jackson. No medical monitoring equipment, no necessary resuscitative equipment. He left him there, abandoned him.
Murray's attorneys say Jackson's death happened very differently.
The evidence will show you that the delivery of that propofol was through Michael Jackson himself. Michael Jackson swallowed 8 2-milligram lorazepam pills.
At one point, Dr. Murray cried in front of the jury while his attorney discussed Jackson's friendship. Then came the first witness.
He was chilled, and he appeared lost.
Kenny Ortega, the director and choreographer for Jackson's upcoming This Is It tour, says Jackson had to sit out a rehearsal 1 week before he died.
My friend wasn't right, that he wasn't well. There was something going on that was deeply troubling me.
The next day, Ortega says Murray confronted him during a meeting at Jackson's home.
He said I should stop trying to be an amateur doctor and psychologist and be the director and allow Michael's health to him.
KTLA's legal analyst Manny Medrano says the prosecution definitely had some powerful arguments.
25 minutes elapsed from the moment that Michael Jackson stops breathing to the time you pick up the phone and call 911. That's egregious. That's terrible. That's criminal. The most powerful argument made by the defense today was pretty straightforward, that Michael Jackson was responsible for his own demise.
Paul Gongaware, Jackson's tour promoter, will be back on the stand tomorrow. Today he testified that Conrad Murray wanted $5 million to be Jackson's personal doctor for a year. He settled for $150,000 a month. In downtown Los Angeles, Brandi Hitt, KTLA 5 News.